All right.
Good, we're live.
Alright. Okay, just before we get started here, just want to let those on at Zoom at home, those council members, just so you know, there's, anyway, in our council chambers, we have Chris Hall, Ivory Owner, and Zoe Stone, and Bonnie, and Mark, of course. That's who's in our council chambers. So I'll call this meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody want to add anything to the agenda? If not, we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move.
Councillor Hickey makes that motion. All in favor? Okay, good. So we have a public hearing of Bylaw 1097-21. It's first on our agenda, and we'll go to our Development Officer, Mark Baltazar. You want to talk, please?
Yeah, so we'll open up the public hearing for Bylaw 1097-21. I'll present my council brief that was presented to council a month ago when first reading of this bylaw was heard. So this is a rezoning application at 42 South, 200 West to create and this is the property right here, and the application is to amend the bylaw to include this area in the back, which is currently zoned urban reserve, to general residential. Along with the application here is details of Phase 4A. This area was also included with the design of Phase 4A at time of application. Also of important note, we also have Denver Wild, who is kind of listening here. He's the owner of the property and was approached by the developer of Bridge Crossing to include this area as part of their plans for infrastructure. So the servicing of this lot was to be through Bridge Crossing. So the access, the road access, and the sewer and the water, as well as the drainage and shallow utilities such as gas, power, electricity, and that stuff was to be fed through Bridge Crossing. So the access would be off of here, and this would create a residential parcel back here.
So it's lot 42.
Lot 42 would be the future plans for this area. Since that time, the applicant, there's been some changes there in Denver. They would still like to go through with the rezone application so that himself, or potentially if another buyer of the property, of the whole property, is able to then proceed with a subdivision application in the future and doesn't need to go through the same rezone process to go at urban reserve. So discussing with him today is that he would like to continue with the application even though the submittals have been mostly through the developer to include this area as Bridge Crossing. So the details of it is that urban reserve is kind of left for areas that are kind of hard to, not hard to develop, but just areas that are set aside for creating development plans when we do have them, and this prevents things like dwellings to be constructed on these areas, garages and something of residential nature until they are rezoned and fit for actual residential use. So this bylaw would then change this property from urban reserve to general residential. Here's the existing land use bylaw. You can see that this whole property is the property in question, and the rear half is currently zoned urban reserve. Our future land growth and directions map in our municipal development plan identifies this area as a desirable change to the residential zone. So this is consistent with our MVP. And this is kind of the submitted conceptual design scheme that was included with the application. So the idea is that if at some point someone down the line wanted to subdivide and create a lot back here, it could be considered as part of phase 4 of bridge crossing, but could potentially be done at a later date or recently, but that timeline needs to be determined by the landowner. So here's the actual drawings that were submitted with the application. And the other thing that we want to maybe point out before we get and open it up to public comments is redesignation criteria. So when redesignating land from one district to another, considerations may include the following. So compliance with any applicable standards and provisions of the land use bylaw, consistency with the municipal development plan and any other adopted statutory plans. Like I said, there is some consistency with our municipal development plan, as this is identified as a change to residential in our MVP. Thirdly, considerations, criteria should include compatibility with adjacent uses, development potential site and suitability of the site, the availability of facilities and services. So in this plan that we've been presented is that the services and the sewage disposal, water, electric, gas would all be fed through bridge crossing for this one, if it is to be recycled land. Also, the cumulative impact to the town, potential impacts on public roads, setback distances in the subdivision and development regulation, supply and suitability designation of land, and public comment and any applicable review agency comments. So we haven't had any public comments other than the 2 listed, which we will read from you from a neighboring residence to the site. Any other questions on that?
So before anyone has any questions, council, I just want to remind you, the public hearing is for you to find out answers to any questions you may have. It's not to tip your hat in any direction. Let anyone know how you're going to vote or discussion that way. We'll do that when we move further down. The public hearing is just to get answers to any questions that you may have. So, Councilor Peters.
Question for Mark. Just want to double check that the developers are going to put in services for that lot 42 that is not going to be part of their development. Is that correct?
That will be kind of addressed at the subdivision process. So right now, this is a rezone designation, so we have to consider going from urban reserve to residential. If it's fit for residential, it then opens up subdivision. And so the actual details of how the services are put in and how that is actually addressed at subdivision application process.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions before I move on to 3.2 or Bonnie Bruner? Okay, I'll move to Bonnie, please. Or senior planner, please.
Thanks. I just want to reiterate the compatibility components that Mark looked at. And from a land use perspective, there aren't any issues or concerns with respect to rezoning this property at this time. It can be serviced, it is suitable for a residential use, and it can be serviced. So we really don't see any issues or concerns and would recommend consideration of approval.
Public comments, 3.3. Does anybody have any questions first for Bonnie? Okay, public comments. You have a couple written there, A and B. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to read them. I talked to Mark earlier just to get some clarity on these. So they're a little bit mixed up. I don't know how to say it nicely. Anyway, does anybody have any comments on these two? Do we have any other public comments? Denver is online, does he want to comment?
No comment.
No comment from Denver?
I guess I can imagine one comment or question. One of the community people who wrote in about this with a concern mentioned 3 plans. And thought that this was the weakest of the 3. Is this a foregone issue already?
I can,
Are there other plans that are still being considered, or is this the plan?
yeah, I can answer that, this is Bonnie. I think perhaps what he might be referring to is there was at one point in time some different considerations evaluated for if there were other properties south of this subdivision incorporated into an overall design. As far as compatibility or consistency with the approved area structure plan, the plan that's being currently proposed is consistent with that plan. So those other 3 plans were really just kind of conceptual considerations for if the area developed with additional properties that weren't originally considered as part of the original area structure plan, which would have required a major amendment to the area structure plan.
And isn't that a developer decision to switch to those 3 plans?
Well, it would have required getting a number of landowners involved south of Bridge Crossing that would have resulted in a completely different design for that area to the south. That never culminated, and the developer chose to move forward with the approved area structure plan.
But still, it wasn't a council decision, it was a developer's.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
So do I understand correctly that he has the opportunity to reapply on this? Then it was put on hold because we were waiting for the, what could have happened?
Yes, with respect to the properties south of this, there have been
No, I'm
changes.
talking about
Yeah.
the person that wrote the.
Yeah, he is south of this.
Yes.
He can make an application. There have been changes in development opportunities on the south that would allow him to move forward with a rezone at this time.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, I guess I make a final call for any comments or questions from anybody? Councilor
Question,
Cruz?
Mayor?
Sure.
I'm not sure if this is now or later when it comes to development, but do we concern ourselves at all with how this is drained, all types of stuff? Or is that going to be when after it goes to general residential, then the application is approved beyond that?
Yeah, so it goes back to item number, let me see here. In the redesignation criteria, the suitability of the sites. So at the rezone stage, we're not incredibly worried about the details of the actual submission. We are actually more worried or more concerned with providing enough information to determine that it's suitable for residential use. And so with this redesignation application, we actually have included the phase 4 drawings, and this shows that there is a drainage plan in place to address drainage for this particular lot, and it would be through the bridge crossing subdivision design. But again, that detailed stage is done at subdivision, and the only thing that we're looking for is that the site is suitable and that there is in fact a plan being submitted at this time, that there is something in place to proceed and go forward.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, does everybody feel they've got any questions answered or have any more questions? So in other words, last call for any questions? Okay, and the public hearing for bylaw 1097-21 is now over. We'll now open up public hearing bylaw 1098-21. This public hearing is now open. Mark, do you want to talk about this one, please?
Yes, so Moving on to the second one, Bylaw 1098-21. This is for a property at 218 North, 300 West. And currently, the property is zoned general residential, and the application would be to change it to general commercial. With this this change in zoning, what the biggest thing is the amount or the list of permitted uses that are available to apply for in the development permit. So right now, as a general use in our land use, or in the general residential land use district, we can issue development permits for things such as single-family dwellings, accessory structures such as garages, and we can issue development permits of a residential nature. We can't even consider any sort of development permits for a commercial use. So this application is to change that land use from general residential to general commercial. In our land use bylaw, we have a list of permitted uses and discretionary uses in our general commercial area. So with this rezoning, we are then able to consider some of the permitted uses are permitted, is that if they meet the minimum requirements in the land use bylaw, we have to issue a development permit for these types of uses. These uses are discretionary of the development officer, and these uses listed here are the uses that could be considered if this rezone is to go forward, and they would be conditional of the Municipal Planning Commission at time of development permit application. So again, we're not saying what this property is going to be right now. We're saying that this is potentially considered for commercial use at this time. So that's what this bylaw amendment would be, to change this from general residential to general commercial. In terms of where this is located, I have our existing land use map. Slide here. Just bear with me. Computer's kind of loading here. So this is the property at 218 North, 300 West. There's existing residents on the west side of the property. Land title, this is the RPR. Again, this is showing what the existing state of the property is at. There's a house on the west side, a garage.
East side.
East side, correct, yeah, sorry. And a garage to the north of that. And so this is the existing land use map of the surrounding area. My computer was just load there for a bit. So we have public and institutional with the LDS Taylor Street Chapel, which is to the west of the property. We have residential to the north of the property, and then we also have a commercial business currently operating as the Dairy Queen to the east of the property. And then across Highway 52, we also have residential areas. So this would factor into your consistency with the adjacent uses. That shows you what the existing uses are surrounding the property. As part of our consistency with our municipal development plan, this is the future growth direction map that was adopted in 2019, and this shows that areas of future growth directions. And in this MDP, we do have that this property is identified as a potential future growth direction to a commercial zoning in our municipal development plan.
Can you explain that better to me?
Sure. Yeah.
So where is it being changed to commercial in the future? Can you tell me? Because I live in that area and I'm a little confused by that map.
Yeah. So. So what it is that they're.
I understand this map.
Yeah. So this is existing.
The future one is the one that is, it's like zoomed way out, and if you can just show me where the highway
Okay, I'm trying to zoom in here a little bit. But this is Highway 52 right here. This blue area,
That's the church.
public and institutional. This orange area.
So has this been sent out to town members? Because I feel like I'm a town member and I would want to know what the future plans for the town are, and I think it's kind of shady that that hasn't been sent out to the town. You guys obviously know, you're in the know, so there's 10 people in town that know, but what about the other 4,000 residents affected? I'm just curious. I mean, this
Yeah.
has nothing to do with this specific thing, but I'm kind of pissed off because I built my dream house a block away from where you guys have this plan. Go on, keep going.
It's just saying open transparency, that's all.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, this has been
What's
around for
happening?
3
We're just in
years
shock.
and
We're just in shock, that's why we came to find out
anyways,
what's happening.
we'll let you keep talking, but I'm just saying, I think that might be something that more than
Even
me
when
is just
people
interested
buy
in.
lots and plan to build homes, because her house has only been done for what, 3 years?
Yeah,
They're not very long, 3 years, so I wish I would have known that the town had this direction going. Anyways, keep going.
So
So just maybe for a point of clarity, right now there'll be an opportunity for public comment. So please let it follow through the process. As far as clarity and transparency, this was advertised when it was approved in 2018. So everyone in the community would have heard that there was a potential for rezoning.
I got this in the mail, Curtis. I got this in the mail.
How was it
'cause I don't remember
advertised?
that.
It would have been advertised on our social media and on our website when the rezoning happened, and as far as every public document, and it is on our website. So it is, as far as public transparency concerned, it is there. Whether or not everyone sees every notification that goes out is another story.
What
That's
percentage
valid.
of the population, Curtis, do you think knows about this plan? Because I'm gonna go with its 0.001.
It's probably low, but
Yes.
in all fairness, most don't care either,
But-
right? We
I
We
would
publish
say
the
most don't
information.
care is untrue,
Just
but
a
go on,
comment,
go on.
maybe something just for future, when there is a plan to expand, because I'm seeing all those houses along the highway. And maybe if there's a plan to expand commercially, that's a big deal. Maybe those particular people and the adjacent lot should actually get a mail letter. This is our future plan. Like, because that's a big deal.
So I might interfere here, I can't remember back to 2019 when we did discuss this, but maybe Curtis can. We obviously looked at it, and like he said, it was put out,
Because
But-
yeah, you're
but
right,
the
there's a
people
lot
that
of
live in
people that
those
don't
homes
care.
weren't informed.
but I have no idea on that one. I can't remember.
Anyways, go on.
Yeah, so there is a planning process, same thing as this public hearing, right? We follow the same procedures, is that we do have some requirements in the Municipal Government Act that we do have to follow. So that's the same reason why you guys were given notice about the public hearing. There's the same procedure for the municipal development.
I wasn't given notice, actually.
Yeah, so those ones,
Which kind of
it
tips
actually
me off
is,
too.
it encompasses the entire town of Raymond, the MVP. So notice was probably done at that time to the entire, town. You probably didn't get an
What kind
individual
of
letter.
notice?
So, yeah, I can address that because I was there. And actually, we had many people in attendance at that public hearing, so
Is that during the Dairy Queen issue?
yes.
Yes, whenever.
Oh,
we
this
started.
happened, no, we're talking
she's
about
talking about-
2018.
Yeah.
When this became the future plan, 2018?
Yes, so originally the MDP, which is the Municipal Development Plan, was prepared back in 2009. And there was actually quite a substantial public consultation component, design, charrettes, a survey, the whole 9 yards. And then the First Amendment
We didn't even live in Raymond at that time.
But
So,
it came
and
on.
I'm just saying, we bought our land after the fact. I just
Yeah.
wish the person at the town said, by the way,
Well, and
where you're building is gonna be industrial or commercial soon. Just maybe would have been
Well,
nice
and
before I
so-
sent 700,000 on a house, but whatever, it's fine. Keep going.
So in June of 2019, there was this amendment to the municipal development plan. And at the time, the Dairy Queen proposal, this property was also being considered for redesignation at that time. A notice was placed in the newspaper. The adjacent landowners received notice. Technically, since I think you're one south, right?
I am,
Yeah,
but
so I
it
guess-
does affect
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was notice in the newspaper and adjacent landowners
I
were
guess it
required
I didn't
Get
get
the newspaper.
notice for the Dairy Queen because at that time,
It was the park was being
you
rezoned.
put, you put the
They didn't
other
even say it
acre
was
on
Dairy
hold. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the piece that we're now talking about, there was an issue, and the landowner decided after the public hearing to withdraw their application. And so then that's why this property was not rezoned back at the same time as the Dairy Queen was. So that's kind of the process. But the municipal development plan is available online for everybody to review. So it is, and all of the amendments were done in a very open and transparent way.
Can I make one comment? Sorry to butt in, but every community has a municipal development plan. Every rural community, every small, every large, every city, it's very common, we have to have it.
I
So-
looked at it
We
before,
looked at it
before
before
we
we
bought
bought our
our
land.
land.
Before we bought our land, we looked at
We
it.
knew that we knew
We knew
that
it was residential.
our road was gonna become a main road, we were aware of that, that's, we built our
That's
houses,
400
we did our
west.
homework, we're not,
But we also knew that by the church it was zoned for residential when we bought our land. So I think the issue is that it seems like the direction the town is going is whatever the municipal development plan is, from what I've seen, the town council seems to vote along with that plan. So the future municipal development plan is fairly important to people that are developing and building homes. Like I know that you can say, oh, it's in the future, but, so yes, being notified when an application is made is one thing, but when you're building like a $600,000-$700,000 house, if I had known that this was the future development plan, which you're not always notified of the future development plan by mail, like you would be, like this application, I was notified by mail. But had I known that this was the future development plan and I've seen how things have played out, I would know, like we're just here just kind of because I feel like I want to be here. I gotta be honest, I feel like we have almost zero chance for winning because this is the future development plan. So we're just here.
I do wish that there would be some changes in what the council members look at, like for Raymond, like you drive into Coaldale and you drive into Claire's home and I'm like, is that what we're hoping? Like, is that our vision? Like, I really hope we end up like Coaldale. Oh man, that'd be sweet if we could really get some industrial things.
When
And
you
like-
come into town, that'd be awesome.
Flat out, just so everybody knows, this is gonna become a car wash. Just so everybody knows. So
So I didn't.
in
know
my
this.
mind, a car wash should belong in the industrial area of town.
And
There's
not-
lots of land out there, there's even land for sale out there that's been for sale for maybe 7 years out there. But that's what it's gonna be, and
Yeah, but you-
when you drive into town and you're thinking, is this a nice town where I wanna build a house and raise a family? Our car wash just isn't like, in the residential area, isn't a strong selling point. Would not be for
Mayor?
me anyways.
Councillor Peters, can you, is it okay if he interjects right now?
Yeah, I'm,
Okay, go ahead.
Is it okay? I think this is our meeting, and the members of the public can speak when they get a chance to speak.
No, but she
Hey
had,
Bryce, sorry, we were never given the protocol here, so
she had the
if someone
floor.
would lay it out for us, we'll follow it,
Councillor
for sure,
Peters,
lay it out for us.
She had the floor right then, because it is in the public comments right now, she had the floor. So-
I didn't think we got the public comments yet.
Just
Well,
lay out the protocol and then we'll follow it, we didn't,
Bonnie
sorry, we
was
weren't aware of that.
finished, and I think she was finished, she was talking, and then the public started asking questions to Bonnie, so I think it is public comments, so.
go ahead, Bryce.
Go ahead.
No, my comment was that we could finish getting all the information we need.
I think I was through my briefing, and then this MVP.
Then I jumped in.
So are you done, Bonnie, with your briefing?
So I would say that I would still like just to quickly finish, and then we can turn the floor over to Bonnie.
We did jump in, our bad, we don't
It's
know how
okay.
it works,
It's
I've
okay.
never been
So
to
I
one.
thought we did turn the floor over to Bonnie.
It's okay.
Maybe it's because you interjected and said.
And actually, Bryce, we voted you in, bud, it's our meeting. I'm sorry, but like, that was kind of uncalled for, well,
It's okay, Bonnie, I mean,
Yeah, I think
Mark.
Mark wants to.
finish please.
Okay. Also, I'll finish up with
Yeah, all we have to say is do we get.
with just finishing up on my last items here was just the infrastructure. My last page on after the municipal development plan part of the proposal was the suitability of the site in terms of infrastructure. So we do have, I would say, enough infrastructure. Water, we have a 6-inch water main to the south. We have a sewer main that's also to the south of this property. And we also have storm in Highway 52. So the suitability of the site could potentially be considered suitable for a commercial use. So that wraps up my council brief. And I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mary Jo.
Okay, thank you. So Bonnie, I'm sorry if that, when you were helping us out there with that, I thought that was your.
No problem.
Yes, okay, go ahead. Mary.
Okay, so I'll just touch on a couple of the policies from the municipal development plan that Mark kind of talked about, or sort of indicated with respect to the criteria that are in the land use bylaw. One being with growth direction, so that decisions regarding future land use and growth directions should be consistent with the concepts illustrated in the future land use and growth directions map. So, as Mark indicated, redesignating this property to commercial would be consistent with the long-range plans for the municipality, as well as concurrency of services and facilities, so that the impacts of development are consistent with those services available, and that development wouldn't outpace the capacity of municipal infrastructure. With respect to commercial itself, I do just want to point out, even though there is a list of permitted and discretionary uses, the permitted uses category does allow for a number of mitigating conditions to ensure that when this type of development on the permitted use side is adjacent to residential, there are provisions in the land use bylaw for buffering, landscaping, and minimizing potential impacts. On the discretionary side, that ability is even more defined. So the Municipal Planning Commission, when considering any of those things, including things like a car wash, would really have to look at the suitability and compatibility of the property in terms of what are the surrounding uses, and can that use be mitigated through conditions, and or is it even feasible at that location. So when you're considering a redesignation, although all of these things could be possible, it's still possible that they may not be suitable, right? So the property might be okay for a health service, but a mini storage facility might not be suitable. And so those are the things that are dealt with at the time of the development permit. Also too, in the land use bylaw, there are some provisions that at the time of the development, that the Municipal Planning Commission can place the conditions stipulated in permitted use applications, as well as any other conditions necessary to ensure the quality, suitability, and compatibility of the development with other existing and approved uses, and any other conditions necessary to fulfill any planning-related objective. So the point being that there are ways to mitigate and ensure compatibility. That summarizes my comments for the reason.
Okay. So now the public comments. So we have some people here. We have 3 of you with any more comments or anything?
I just was hoping that, I don't know how this Zoom thing works, but the person making the application, they're not here, or are they logged in there?
I don't think they're logged in or they'd see them.
Okay. Is that typical for them to not be here? The person making the application?
It's their choice, just says
I just
you
didn't-
have a choice as well to attend or.
Who's JH?
Yeah.
But
No,
does it kind of go the same, like if none of us came to
Sorry,
post it?
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
It's Joan, my camera's not working. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here.
Okay, I can see JH, okay. Go ahead.
I just didn't know, does that count negatively towards the person making the application, like it would count negatively towards us if none of us showed up? You know what I mean?
Like, do they
it's-
really care?
Or is it just that it's a shoo-in and he didn't feel like he
I'm
needed to be
upset
here
that
to
he's
answer
not here
questions?
because I had questions for him. I wanted to know how many employees there were gonna be at this place that were unrelated. If it's a car wash, the number to that is
So
0.
like Mark said, though, it's a rezoning.
Yes,
So
yeah,
that's the next step.
yes.
But then once it's zoned for commercial, we all know that it's out of our hands anyway, because there's that part B that Bonnie discussed that only the development officer would approve. So really, this is our only chance to ask questions, because once it's been rezoned commercial, it's out of our hands, right? This is our only chance.
That's fair.
So if he's not here to answer any of our questions, does it seem fair to vote on move on something that no residents have been able to ask him about? Because once it's rezoned, it's out of our hands, right?
Okay, so Bonnie has a comment.
Yeah, so, I mean, the rezoning is just to establish the district. So, you know, it may or may not be a car wash, I'm not privy to that information, but if it was a car wash, so that is a discretionary use. That still has to come back to the Municipal Planning Commission to determine if that is a suitable and compatible use. As a discretionary use, adjacent landowners and those deemed themselves to be affected have the ability to make comment to the Municipal Planning Commission again. So, you know, the property could be rezoned and someone makes an application for any of these other things. So it may or may not be a car wash, I don't know. And that's
So no one here has honestly heard that it's going to be a car wash?
Is that really everybody's
Is that-
first?
is that-
No,
I'm
no, I
just
have
wondering.
heard, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard some loose things of it could be, but again, this public hearing is not,
About that.
About that.
I get that.
Yeah.
if
So,
I was to receive an application for a car wash, no, you guys are adjacent landowners.
Mark.
I would mail out a notification, and we do have a public hearing very similar to this, held on the third and second and fourth Tuesday of the month, and it's very similar format to this, in that you do have some chances to look at the application and provide comments
so,
for the specific application for, let's say, a car wash.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So Curtis did make reference before the meeting that it could be a car wash, but he didn't say it was planned to be a car wash.
But
we're telling you it is,
yeah,
though.
and they can change their minds
So
too,
like I'm
right?
saying, you're the, that
This
was
is the first
just,
I've heard of being a car
So,
wash.
Meredith,
he was
you,
just
That's the
throwing out something.
Meredith, you may I speak?
Sure.
So the reason I made that comment in the beginning is that there's a bunch of speculation going on public social media regarding what potentially could be. It may be, it may not be, but that's not the intent of the hearing tonight. The intent of the hearing is just, are we feeling that this piece of property is suitable for commercial rezoning as part of our commercial district? If it is, and it's approved, and it goes ahead, then whoever is going to put in something there would have to apply based on what Bonnie and Mark has expressed. If it is permitted, it's permitted. If it needs discretionary input, it comes back to the Planning Commission, just like any other development. So all I was trying to do was not to lead the discussion that it's going to go one way or the other. I'm trying to just make sure that we're discussing what's actually pertinent today, which is it going to be rezoned commercial or not? A future development may or may not happen, and we don't know what that is until there's a time of application. And so I understand the comments and I understand the frustrations of some of the potential concern. However, I think it's a bit premature because we don't actually have that application yet.
Okay, so I just have one more comment and I'm done. And this is just a plea with the town councillors. Please, when things like this come up, I'm like, yeah, if it's gonna become like a legal office, whatever, there'll be like 3 cars in and out during, like, it'll be nothing. So
And not
yes,
even on
it-
Sundays.
yeah, like it does make a difference. Like we both worship at the church that's next door to that, and as people that worship at that church, like it could potentially affect us worshiping, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But please, when there's things that are industrial, please try to steer them towards the industrial area because it's a slippery slope. And like I said before, I just don't want to end up like Coaldale, Claire's home. Like, I just don't think that's what we're aiming for. And like, the town councillors are the ones that basically are steering this ship, and I'm just hoping that they will steer it in a direction that ends us up in like the nice community that we live in and not.
And then
A
can I make
crackle.
one comment and then I'll be done?
Sure. This is what it's about, is public comments.
Pardon me?
This is what it's about, is your public comments.
Okay. So I'm not against commercial growth or whatever, but like Zoe said, I mean, I was gonna come with all these, pardon me?
Depends what it is, like you said.
Yes. I've been all over the world, I've lived all over the world, and I started looking at churches. And when you look at well-planned communities, and of course, I was given an email that said, oh, this church in Calgary has, and there's literally a dumpster 20 feet from the church door. So sure, you can find those, but I don't think it's a secret. If you start looking, I started printing maps of about 50 churches today, and I decided not to bring it, because I thought, oh well. Well-planned communities, I have yet to see one with a shared access driveway from a business, with a business and a church onto the main road. Like, it's a little bit cheesy. And so, sure, you can find literally a retail business right next to a church, usually in a bigger center, like in the armpit of LA. I lived there too. I've looked at a lot of, well, I didn't live in the armpit. I
You
went to
wish.
the armpit a lot, no. But even there would be a church by an apartment building, there'd be a church by schools, by things that were zoned recreational, public, stuff like that. But if there was something by retail, there would be a hill, a retaining wall, a bunch of trees. Like, if you went to church there, you wouldn't know, oh, there's Joe washing his car right there. So
I
there
do
is
feel that every time
a
I go
level
through the
of-
drive-through of Dairy Queen, and like I'm just staring at that person's backyard and thinking, man, I bet they wish there was a fence here dividing them from
But-
Dairy Queen.
So I hope the councillors will take into consideration that there's different businesses. Whether people are for or against a Dairy Queen, that might be something that puts Raymond on a different level on the map. And because we can't care what the business is, it's like we have to vote on, well, it could be anything. So is it gonna be a business that its presence outweighs the damage, because it will do damage, like we wanted to subdivide our back half. It's gonna damage all of us financially. Is it only gonna help that one guy financially? And is it always right to vote in favor of the one business owner as opposed to the little peons that have our houses around?
And live
And-
and make their homes here.
Yes, and just wanna live, and like Chris are approached on Christmas Eve to sell her house, and also lied to that property across from her is commercial to motivate her to sell the lot, and she didn't fact check it, but I did. So like, is that the precedence we're setting, that every time a business owner wants to do something, the town council is just gonna vote in favor of the business owner because we wanna be big town and act like we're for growth, which we are. But like, maybe once in a while, the favor could be made for the little piddly peon residents that pay 93% of the taxes, I think, in the town. I don't know.
Maybe the growth could happen towards the north.
But I mean,
Nobody's living
regardless, there's
in
gonna be
Westwood.
growth, and I know that. But like,
People don't have houses.
once in a while, maybe the vote could be swayed towards just the piddly residents. That is it 93% of the taxes that,
It's about 90% is residential.
yes, like, it's our town, right? Like, I don't know. Every once in a while, let's just vote for the little guy, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
There you go.
This is the time.
So three,
It's our time.
so 3 of the written responses were the 3 represented here. Chris, do you have any comments either? Or just go by your written
The
response?
only other comment, like I said, is I wish the growth would happen, not where people's existing houses are, so that they have to relocate and uproot their whole life when they've decided this is where they want to retire and live and raise their families, like they just built a house over here, these people, and I feel their pain, and then there's other areas to the north where there's people just there and it's waiting for it to be grown north of the railroad, and I don't know why that area isn't getting developed, it just sits there idle. And then where the school is, that's another area, the elementary school that's closed and boarded up, that's another area. I mean, there's other areas where it doesn't affect people's houses and they don't have to uproot and move. And I was just thinking that should be a factor too. I mean, I think down here we need to grow, but I need to also not displace our residents in the process. That's my last final comment.
Okay, thank you. And Trevor, you're online. Do you want to make a comment?
Yes, I'd like to make a few comments here first. First thing is, when we were looking at the town plan for future town planning, you mentioned that there was commercial property and this application would meet that requirement. Well, in looking at your map there, I saw the LDS church, and I'd like to know where the proposed commercial property is going to be west of there or either north of there. North I saw residential, and I haven't seen anything on that map that would indicate that there is proposed more commercial property there.
So I'm not quite sure what you're meaning, maybe Mark and Paul.
Well, I'm saying that somebody, I don't know who it was that mentioned it, but they said that this application meets the site plan. I think it was maybe Mark. It meets the town's planning, future plans for commercial property in that vicinity, in that area. Well, it really doesn't, because there is nothing marked on there other than if you take a look at where the lot is in question that you're gonna rezone, adjacent to it is the LDS church. Where would you propose more commercial property be expanded in the future? And if there isn't any, then why are we doing it here now? We've made one big mistake with the Dairy Queen as far as I'm concerned. I mean, nobody's living a bigger hell than I am right now because I've lost everything: property, privacy, lifestyle enrichment, all those key benefits that we want our citizens to have in this town. The next comment I have is on the protocol. When you're doing these rezonings, it should be to avoid all this, all these innuendos and all these suspicions. The applicant's name should come forward. The proposed purposes or options that may be available that he wants to develop on that lot. Otherwise, as we were saying earlier, when you put the Dairy Queen in here, we went through this similar process. We didn't know it was a Dairy Queen, but at the initial meeting, just like we're doing here now, we're saying, well, it could be a car wash. Well, it could be a Dairy Queen. And one of the applicants who was going to future purchase, who ended up purchasing it in the future after the meeting, they put in an application for a Dairy Queen. Well, we weren't here, my wife and I, we weren't here to object to it because we were still down in California for the winter, but we got home a week after the meeting, and at that time, the damage was done. But I'm just saying that I would much rather see on this lot, rather than commercial, make it multiple residential and give them the option to put two houses on there, or a side by side, or a multiple dwelling one with maybe 2 or 3 homes on that lot, whatever it can fit, and stay away from the commercial aspect of it.
And there should be a barrier for that.
Yeah, and a barrier. And I don't think, if you look at that lot, as I've looked at, I see it every day, I don't think it's gonna meet the development, the bylaw requirements for placing a building on that lot, because the only access is going to have to be through a lane. And that lane is going to run right adjacent, or right across from the Dairy Queen access.
Okay.
And to do that, you're gonna need 40 feet off a lane in order to have a buffer, or whatever you call it, a setback for a building from a laneway. How are you gonna put in a commercial business?
So this isn't, just to remind you, this isn't for us to defend ourselves or defend this.
Right.
This is a question to find
Right.
answers to questions that we might have.
Yeah, because right now, there's a paved road, but it ends at my driveway. I don't know if the town put that in, but the traffic that's coming over that 300th Street West now is considerable, and the dust is killing us on the front end, and the traffic coming through the drive-through window adjacent to my property is ridiculous.
I think we saw that in your written response. Does any councilors have any questions for any of these to gather more information so you can make your decision?
Can I just ask?
Who's talking?
His wife.
Forget about it.
What is it?
Oh, this,
Uh-oh.
Still there. Still there, small.
does Mr. Wilson, does your wife have a comment?
Yes, she does.
Well, I just remember I just wonder why nothing is done. Is he just allowed to put his business there? He doesn't have to put a buffer between his place and my place? Or do I have to watch the cars going through the driveway all day?
I asked
The
the town
drive-through.
councilor about that.
Yeah, it looks like they're coming in your house all the time and they're not, but
So, okay,
Well, that's not the point. Not that they're coming through my house. The fact is, there should be a buffer.
so again,
He should put
that-
a pit there about 6 feet high.
that's a comment from you on this. Okay, does anyone have any questions for any of these 4 people that are present?
I get your point. It doesn't matter what the residents say.
No, it does matter what the residents say, but this is what we're trying to do is gather info. It's not that we're.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, when we went to the meeting, it was already decided. We left the meeting, the council said you can leave, and when we left, you voted and made it commercial, and Troy was there like a little dog, just waiting to put his building up.
Does anyone have
Any comments?
Anybody have any comments or questions for any of these public comments? Okay. So let's go to 4.4, the referral agencies. Mark?
Yes, due to the location of this property being adjacent to Highway 52, which is jurisdiction of Alberta Transportation, Alberta Transportation was notified of the application, and their comment was provided to say that any development required could benefit from a permit from Alberta Transportation once those specifics are identified. No other issues were brought to light with Alberta Transportation's comments. Aqua Gas was also notified. No comments were received.
So does that mean Alberta Transportation says they can access the highway from there?
They said at time of development permit, when the specifics of the actual development
That's
are
when they will
required,
decide.
that's when they will decide.
We've tried to
and if
access the
required.
highway from that same, and we've
Yeah,
been told
we
it's
actually talked
impossible.
with Bonnie about it, and that's one of my other issues is the town and the town council always gonna vote with, because we wanted to develop our back halves, and we were completely steered clear of that because we wouldn't be allowed access to the highway. And I realize the town says it's the transportation's fault, transportation says it's the town's fault, but in reality, if one or the other wants it, they will work together. But it seems like, are they only gonna work together when it benefits a business and never when it benefits a resident?
So, I don't mean to be defending ourselves all the time here, but just so you know, we had to go talk to Mr. McIver about getting access for the dairy crew to go off that road. And at first he denied it, and then they did.
But nobody from the town
So,
You didn't go see
went
it.
on my behalf to see if, do you know what I'm saying?
this is the first time we've heard about it. I know that's gonna be a through road sometime, but it's a lot harder than you think to get access.
Oh, I know, like I went as far down the process as I could on my own, and again, without help from the town, the business gets help from the town, but yes, as residents, without help from the town,
I guess we have to have a good reason, and I think a street is a good reason too. But I'm sure that's in the future. But once again, we're trying to gather, I know it's hard for you, you have questions, and this is what this is a question. And so I'm trying to be lenient on this, to hear your input and your questions on this. We're not, we really don't have to try to answer your question, we're just trying to gather info. So if you wanna stick around for the next one, we do the bylaw, that's when we will, we will be talking more about it then and asking questions
Okay.
amongst each other. Does anyone else have any questions on this, on the response from Alberta Transportation? Okay. I guess I call for any last comments from anybody? Council first, any last comment from you?
I just wanna make one comment, and it's just to address the 90%. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the 90% of our taxes that come from residents. I'm one of those residents, and I wish there was more 50-50. I wish that every single time we tried to do something in this town, we would be increasing the mill rate. It didn't have to come from residential taxes. The more we get commercial tax base up, the less we have to pay as residents. Just a comment, just something to think.
Can I respond to his comment? I have a
But
question
that's,
about that.
his comment should have been in the next thing too.
Okay, okay,
Then,
sure, yeah,
you know, I'll let you have comments then when we talk about it. We don't have to do that, but we will do
thank you.
that. Is that okay? Anybody else have a question you're trying to find out more? Okay, last call then for comments from the public or from council.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanna, just maybe confirm some protocol things. So once the public hearing is closed, then, council is not able to take on any new information. So if there are additional comments and concerns that you want addressed during this public hearing part, now's the time to do it, because when you get to your discussion part, it's not really a discussion between residents and council, it's a council discussion.
It is, but I was just trying to, I know we're gonna have discussion, we're gonna have a lot of discussion. Just like we did on the last time on the dairy queen.
Yeah.
That's where we have our discussions, that's what I was trying to get at.
No,
So, Mayor?
I just wanted to
So
clarify that.
does anybody have any other questions? Councillor Harkin?
Mayor,
Yes?
Mayor, it's Councillor Harker. Wow, it's really echoey in here. So what you're saying is we will be able to discuss this further because I do have some concerns. I don't really necessarily have any questions for Bonnie or for Mark, but I do have some concerns and want to discuss this further. And so are we gonna be able to do that, Bonnie, what you're saying?
We should have
Yes,
discussion.
yes, I just wanted to clarify that if there's any additional information or concerns or comments that council needs for their discussion, that should be taken right now, because once the hearing's closed and you're having your discussion, we're not gonna be taking on new information from the landowners or from me or from Mark, because you're having your discussion based on the information that was presented to you and identifying any of your concerns through that discussion.
And our discussion is varied here, because we've gone from what it's being used for, and all the speculation that way, it should just have been about rezoning,
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
Okay, so it should just be about rezoning, and we can talk about those other things when we get in our discussion, what it could be, I guess. Correct?
Yes. And if there's any input from anyone who spent their time today to put their input, I think if you have any discussions further with them, now's the time to do it.
Now's the time to do it, not then.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So one of my questions in response to Ron's comment on the taxes, because I know there's this vague idea about businesses alleviating the burden of tax on the residents. So in a case like this, in my mind, the burden of proof should be on the person wanting to change the bylaw. So is there any type of real evidence that, how is, when businesses come in, how does that help the residents in real numbers or real amounts? How does it help them financially? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's nice to say vaguely, oh yeah, that's good, like, everyone knows business is good, but
And if you lose
Is
more
there-
people that wanna move into town, how many people is it worth moving, like, not moving to Raymond?
yeah, cause if
If that makes sense.
90%
'Cause
of
if
the
you lose 20
taxes
people that would
come,
move to town, is that like, oh, well, it's fine because that one business pays 20 homes worth of taxes?
you know what I mean?
It's okay, it's a
Like,
wash. I
you
have no
have to
idea, you
take-
guys probably do.
I don't know if those numbers are out there, if you guys know those answers, I know smart
Sure they
people
do.
know those answers. But yeah, like, if you go, oh, business alleviates the tax burden on residents, how much does it, and at what point do certain businesses or too much business decrease the incoming growth of new residents, because they're like, yeah, like, they might build a car wash next to me, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? So like, what's the balance there, and is there actual real answers and real evidence that makes it worth allowing this business to open at the expense of residents, or is it not at the expense of residents, right? Like, is there a real number that says, yes, this will help businesses, help this percent reduce residential tax? You know what I'm saying? Instead of just a vague, businesses help us all.
so we can discuss that in the next thing,
So,
correct?
yeah.
We're just trying to understand or give comments.
It- I have one more question.
Mr. Wilson, go ahead.
The Highway 52 or the 200th Street, what's the advantage to the town council and thus to the town by allowing businesses to build along Highway 52? Is it due to maintenance that the provincial government has to pick up a cost sharing arrangement and you get paid for cleaning the streets and whatever and lighting and doing maintenance work? And it's far more cheaper for the council or for the town to allow building along the highway to mitigate the town council's cost.
No. So I'm not gonna try to defend anything here. You're just gonna be putting questions into our minds that we can discuss when we get to the discussion part.
Yeah, that's right. And it's,
Okay. Yeah, that is an interesting comment. Any other comments from anybody? Okay, last call for comments then before we close this public hearing. Okay, then this public hearing is now declared closed. Okay, now we'll move on to council. There's no delegation, so we have minutes from April 20th. Everybody had a chance to look at these minutes?
I'll move those minutes.
Councilor Fromm moves to approve the minutes from April 20th. All in favor? Okay, good. The council committee minutes from April 27th.
I'll move those minutes, Mayor.
Councilor Harkin moves them. Any discussion on them? If not, all in favor? Okay, good. We do not discuss financial report at this time. Items for discussion, 8.1, COVID-19. Go ahead, Curtis.
So the premier made an announcement at 6:02 this evening. We do have more restrictions, and I don't know why there's some feedback.
We're not hearing you yet.
I'm getting it on my end, and I apologize for those watching online. As of tomorrow, outdoor social gatherings are being reduced to no more than 5 people. That was for decrease down from 10. Mandatory physical distancing must be maintained at all times between members of different households, and indoor social gatherings are still prohibited. With indoor fitness effective tomorrow, all indoor fitness must close, including one-on-one training. Effective May 5th, funerals, no more than 10 people can attend funeral services, including participants and guests, which is a decrease from 20, and it's in line with weddings now. Retail, effective May 5th, and this is for, and I should preface this, this is for communities that have more than 50 cases per 100,000 people, or with more than 30 active cases. And the town of Raymond is within the county of Warner, and the county of Warner has 112 active cases as of today, and it is the 4th highest in the province for that active cases per 100,000, with just about 1,100, I believe. And so this would be in effect for us. Post-secondary institutions, retail services must limit customer capacity to 10% of fire code, not including staff or minimum 5 customers. And the 10% capacity limit at shopping malls will exclude common area. Curbside pickup and delivery and online services are encouraged. Post-secondary institutions must all shift to online learning only. Places of worship, faith services are limited to in-person attendance of 15 people, which is a decrease from the previous, which was 15% of the capacity limit. Hotels and motels doesn't apply to us. Working from home remains mandatory unless their employer requires the employee's physical presence to operate effectively. Where at work, for operational effectiveness, employees must mask for all indoor settings except at their individual workstations. Workplace transmission, that doesn't really matter. K-12 school effective May 7th will be moving to, all students will be doing at-home learning from May 7th through to May 25th. Restaurants, bars, pubs, and lounges are only for indoor In-person dining on patios prohibited now, so only takeout and delivery services are available. As of May 9th, hair salons, barbers, nail salons, estheticians, tattoos, and piercings must close, whereas previously they were allowed for appointment only. Health and social services, health services such as physicians, dentists, chiropractors can remain open by appointment only. Non-regulated health services such as massage therapists and kinesiologists can remain open by appointment only. Lawyers and photographers can remain open by appointment only. Social services such as shelters and not-for-profit community kitchens can remain open. And this might tie into some of our future discussions, but sports, performance, and recreation effective May 9th. All outdoor sport and recreation is now prohibited except with members of your household, or if you're living alone, 2 close contacts, which is a decrease from the current limit of 10. So this includes all group physical activities such as team sports, fitness classes, and training sessions, all one-on-one lessons and training activities, all practices and training games. All indoor sport and recreation is prohibited, including youth sports. It's indoor. All indoor performance activities prohibited, including youth performances, and professional sport organizations that have previously received exemption can continue provided they follow the strict protocols in place. So obviously there's going to be a bit more digging into that. That's a very brief, short-term review of what was announced this evening, but anything else that was listed previously, I guess, doesn't matter because this is the new practice we have to follow. So.
Okay, thank you. Not encouraging, but that's what I guess we have to deal with for the next while. Would you say for 2 weeks?
I apologize, it is this until from May 5th, May 9th, depending on what, May 7th and May 9th, depending on the restriction. And that is in place for 3 weeks to my knowledge, which would be until, sorry, I'm not 100% sure. From what I remember reading 3 weeks, and I think that would be until May, let me just check. 25th is my rough guess, but that might not be 100% accurate.
Okay. Any comments from anybody? Okay, we'll move to 8.2. Bylaw 1102-21, the Community Engagement Committee. First reading. Councilor Foss, you want to talk about this? I see you have it in your committee reports, but you want to talk about this anyway?
Yeah, I can speak to it. This is some time back, council established a temporary committee or sorry, I've lost the term. The temporary committee, ad hoc. For the community engagement committee, the length of term for that expired, and so through discussions of the committee, they proposed bringing it back to council as a standing permanent committee of council, which requires a bylaw. And so this is the bylaw that would establish it.
Okay, good. Everybody understand? I think this is great. This is something that they're working hard on, and they're trying to help us as a council to be more transparent. I think it's a great idea. Any comments from you, Abe? About do this?
No comments. We did add some provisions here for membership turnover. Hopefully that's in line with what the members were envisioning.
Okay. I guess we need a motion for first reading of this Community Engagement Committee. Bylaw 1102-21. Councilor Hickey moves. Any discussion? I think we all agree it's going to be for the positive in the community. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Joan, I don't know if we got one from you. Councilor Harker?
Yes, you did.
Was there a thumb come up? I'm sorry.
It was. I'll do it again.
Okay. Okay, I'll move on to 8.3. This is bylaw number 1097-21. land use bylaw rezoning. This will be the second reading of this one. This is the one we have the public hearing on tonight. So, any discussion on this?
I would, can you hear me? Because it's very
No,
echoey.
we can hear you, Councillor Harkin, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to speak to this. I have had a few texts while we were discussing this with people that go to church at that building strongly opposed.
So
I
this,
think-
this is the other one, Councillor Harkin, this is the one on the Ridge Crossing.
Oh, Bridge Crossing,
The
okay.
one that's owned by
Sorry, I'm on the wrong one.
Mr. Wild,
Yes, got it.
okay. Any comments on this?
I have no comments on that one.
Does anyone have any comments? This is an interesting one. Does anyone want to entertain a motion? Second reading of bylaw 1097-21.
I'll move second reading.
Councillor Fromm, for discussion. This is to help that Ridge Crossing subdivision keep going. Councillor Capiters, you had a question about services, who's gonna pick up the services? I don't know if we know that or not, if that's even part of this.
No, that'll be part of the next aspect.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then, any other discussion on this? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, I got 4 thumbs. Okay, we'll move to 8.3.1, that's 1097-21, the third reading of this same bylaw. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll move third reading on that bylaw, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Harkin moves third reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that was easy. 8.4, bylaw 1098-21, the land use bylaw rezoning, second reading. Someone want to make a motion first, or do you want to just have discussion? Discussion, anyone?
I'll make that motion to approve, then we have discussion.
Okay? The motion on the floor, then, so discussion on this. Lots of interesting, we should have lots of interesting discussion on this that came out from that. I see Mr. Wilson left. That's too bad. His comment was that we do not have anything, we're not gonna make anything from having that. It has nothing to do with us. We're just trying to, when people have ideas, we're just trying to help progress in our town. We're not trying to, it's interesting, people wanna put money forward to have progress in our town. And other people don't want progress in their town. It's just interesting. Anyone else have a comment?
Mayor?
Councillor Harker first.
Okay, Mayor. This is the one that I wanted to speak to. I've just gotten several texts. People didn't understand really what was going on. And I don't think because the home that's facing the Dairy Queen, I'm thinking that was not, it was in discussion, but really it's the whole piece of property. And so the business would back onto the access to the church. And this is the discussion that I'm hearing right now, is many people are very concerned about this. And again, not knowing what business will be or how that will impact Sunday services. I feel like we need to table this until we get more input or get more information, because I'm not ready to be in approval of this right now, because I don't know. I think we should get more input from the community And I do have my reservations about this, for sure.
So what kind of input are you looking for, like, just so I can understand what you're talking about? You're talking about, so we're talking about the piece of land that's on the west side of where the Dairy Queen now sits? And that house that's there is
Yes.
is facing east? And
The house
that's,
is facing east.
and right now, that's the only access onto the land, I think, is east?
Well, unless they would go through the church parking lot, the
So
alley that goes
the
into
other
the church
access-
access.
Yeah, the other access is the alley, correct? That's, yeah, that's the alley that goes into the church or down the alley.
That's the concern,
That's the
right
concern.
there. Because depending on what the business is, the parking lot for the business shares with the parking lot for the church, maybe, but we don't know. And that's the concern that I'm hearing from residents.
So,
And I think it's pretty valid, personally.
so the only thing I can say is we're talking about the rezoning, not the business yet.
I know, but once it's rezoned, you don't really, it's commercial, right? Once it's
commercial,
rezoned,
that's what it's being rezoned to, is commercial.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Once it's rezoned, it's rezoned.
Any other discussion from anybody?
All my
on that?
reservations, that's all I'm saying. I have huge reservations right now.
So once it's rezoned commercial, there's still allowed uses, there are discretionary uses. Some of those uses have to get the approval of Mark, others have to get the approval of the entire NPC, which we still have control over what's on there, even after it's rezoned.
Yeah, I understand that.
I understand what you're saying though, because if we rezone this to commercial, then it's probably going ahead. That's what I
Yes,
think I understood.
and the other thought,
I
Mayor,
agree, and
is
so-
that once it's commercial, we've lost our freedom so far as what's gonna happen in 10 years. We don't know. I mean, it could start off with one thing, and then in 10 years, because it's commercial, it could be something completely different. That's all. I'm just looking down the road. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, once you've made it commercial, it's commercial.
So,
Then you've got to fight for what you have or you don't have.
so you did talk about tabling it, and what was that for, to table it to?
Just so we can get more input from the community, because I'm feeling right now that, I just got a sense, people are like, what? You didn't know, like, this is by the church, that affects people that go to that church, that affects them. They weren't looking into that. They were thinking the business was gonna be facing the Dairy Queen and it wouldn't affect the church at all. In reality, it's the whole property. It's not just the lot facing the Dairy Queen, it's the whole property to the alley of the church.
It's a big problem, you're correct.
So,
some other
I-
discussion,
Mark, the discussion, personally.
so some other, discussion was made about, that whole 52 being part of our, what's the word, the MDP? Plan for commercial. It's been a while since we did that, and we tackled so many different things, it's hard to remember everything, but I do remember talking about this property a little bit, a little vaguely, but we did talk about it would be a good, place for commercial. Because it's on a road where people are driving on, going through 52, and that was our whole reason, if I remember right. That's what we discussed. So that's one of the comments that was brought up here, and that's why we thought about it, and discussed it, and that's why it would probably happen. Some other comments that were brought out is that maybe it should be on the Railway Avenue, other things there, but personally, I'm hoping we will get other commercial down there, but right now, these are the ones I think people are more after for commercial. Any other discussion on that?
Mayor?
Councilor Foss?
suppose I'll first say that I know the I know the discomfort that can come with being in proximity to commercial in a residential place. But this one seems straightforward to me, simply because it's along that corridor, which we'll see lots of traffic coming into our community. We've already identified it in our municipal development plan as a future commercial site. And I think that we have an opportunity at the planning commission level to decide what's appropriate and what isn't for their area. And I think some lessons learned perhaps from the last commercial in that zone is that perhaps we put stricter screening controls to make a better barrier between the residential and the commercial. And that's something we could probably do better on development on this property. But otherwise, I feel like it's a fairly straightforward one for me.
So I wish Trevor was still online because I understood that he was offered some better screening and he refused it. That wasn't one of the things we were to talk about in the public hearing, but I'd like to ask him. Councillor Computers?
Just to go along with what Councillor Foss said, sorry for this echo. I think the council, we struggle with the ability to be able to produce commercial property in a good area that is going to attract business. And I think that's the reason why the MVP was set out the way it was to identify locations that would be a good potential fit for future development. We're kind of landlocked in certain areas, but I think having commercial property along the highway is beneficial for people coming through town. The idea would be that it might increase business capacity for other businesses within our town by having additional businesses in town. I'm not sure, what Mrs. Oler was talking about, but we'd like to know what the spin-off is on these businesses and what it does put back into the community, but I think it has to be beneficial for residents. And when it comes to taxes, I hope it does make it a lighter load for our residents.
Okay. Councillor Fromm?
This is a technicality, but can everybody please try muting themselves so we don't get that feedback? It's really hard to understand this. And while I got the floor, the municipal planning plan, the NP is like a 40-50-year document. And if you look at all like those colors, you'll see all the way down the Highway 52 and another block of residential currently on Main Street. That's a long range plan. It just happens that this is being dealt with currently. So it's something that can be affected by future council. It's not just a 3-year plan, it's not a 4-year term plan. It's a 40-50-year document. And it's living, and it can be influenced by the public or councils or anything else. But right now, we're doing a portion that's current.
Good. The point was made too about access to the property. Right now, there's only access on the east side of it. And like I was trying to explain, that we had to go talk to Minister McIver and try to get access for the Dairy Queen on Highway 52. And so I'm sure it'll be the same thing, be the same problem when if there is a commercial, something on there commercially, we'll have to have access. They're gonna have a hard time getting access off the highway. He did not want to give any access off Highway 52.
And they didn't, in fact, right?
What's that?
They did not give that access.
No, they didn't.
We used the laneway and the roadway
Right.
that already had existing access.
Yeah, so it's a lot
And,
harder than things.
Might I say, Councillor Foss, that's exactly my point. That existing driveway is the access to the church. So in other words, there's so much echo, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to talk slow. In other words, the access for that business will be shared with access to the church. That is my concern. Am I wrong in having that be a concern? anybody that goes to church there.
Counselor, our CAO Curtis has a comment.
No, I think Joan's totally fair in expressing a comment and the frustrations of some public for sure. The one point of information I just threw out is that access is technically a lane that isn't just fully developed. So it's not like it's a private access just for a church, which it happens to be along a laneway that could be developed, no different than any other lane within the community when such need arises. And so while their frustration is valid, it is along the laneway, which is for future access to the back half of those lots that currently don't have it in the future, if and when it happens. Not sure that'll mitigate the concerns of those who have it for the shared access, but it is suitable or cognizant with the use of a lane as a future development.
Any other comments from council? If not, I'm gonna ask these three ladies if they have comments, if they're addressed or talk about other issues. 'Cause, I didn't write them down, I probably should have been writing down other issues.
My only one thing is that Bryce commented that he hoped it would help residents financially. There's pretty concrete evidence that it will hurt those residents financially. So I think it'd be nice before council votes to have them discuss or figure out how do these things help residents financially. And then I know you've talked a lot about, and I fully understand, like we're here to answer questions and it's not to decide what business it is. I feel like it's kind of insulting for the residents to have the person making the application not even show up. And so how are questions even asked or addressed by council, by residents, if he's not even here? Like, is that typical to vote on something without him even here? Like, he's the one that wants to change the bylaw. We just want to keep the status quo. So the person who's changing it, shouldn't they be here proving why it should be changed? Unless the decision's already been made by town administration and town council, which seems not really like the proper protocol, and why did we come? You know what I mean?
For sure.
So if he's not here, how are questions answered?
My only comment is that you guys were so excited about the Brooks guy coming here, showing us how to have this wonderful community that appeals. And I feel like, what was that all about? Like, what was the point if you're just gonna plop down businesses? Like on that plan, it's like, this is way on the edge of what would be considered that business area. Like, can we start more towards the middle, kind of work our way out? I feel
Unless,
like
of
this
course,
doesn't
it's a
really.
case like the Dairy Queen where you can show a measurable, right? Like, so I'm not.
Yeah, the Dairy Queen had to be within.
It elevated the town to
Well,
a different level.
It had to match certain criteria for Dairy Queen, and I understand that that was the only spot available.
So let me answer yours first. So it's pretty hard to find lots for anything, like for commercial. So downtown.
There's a lot that's been
downtown-
for sale up in the industrial area for about 5
Well,
years.
there
Troy
it is.
actually has had it for sale. Go
When
on.
I mean downtown, there isn't. And we're at where people are driving, and that's why this lot, it's an older house. I understand I guess I understand his intentions are to knock it down, so that he can't put something there. That's why I bought that older house with the lot. I'm sure it'd be nice if someone would have done that with the intention of putting a nicer house in it. But it wasn't.
Someone still could if it was zoned residential still.
They sure
For
could.
sure. But he's the one that purchased it, so
Yeah.
that's what we're talking.
Yeah, we would ask him
Yeah.
about it, but he's not here.
And yes, it's hard to find lots for commercial, it's also hard to find acres in town for residents, so at what point is council always gonna vote with the business guy? You know what I mean, like everyone, you know,
So it's what Councilor Peters was saying, we don't have a big commercial base, it's a residential based town. So we're looking for more commercial, we are, because it just helps our taxes. It lowers your taxes by having more.
yes, and so we'd like to see maybe how specifically. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's nice to say it lowers our taxes, but
Give us the numbers. Where's the accountant?
Councilor Foss, you have a comment first? I think you're muted. can't hear you.
He mentioned living in a business area, but he chose to buy that house when it was
That
already
was his
business
choice.
area. We did not make that choice.
Yes, he chose to buy
You chose that,
downtown
Councillor
Raymond.
Foss.
I
We did
chose
not.
to buy where it was
Okay.
zoned
Let
residential.
Councilor Foss.
Let Council
Go on.
Foss have the floor. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All I was gonna say, it's rare that the economics align nicely with future planning for commercial. There's a lot of properties along that have been designated as future commercial that are 40, 50 years out from ever being viable as commercial because the buildings and the properties are in such a state that they just won't be taken out until it's economically viable. This one is one that's on our future planning, that the house is such that I think it does probably make economic sense right now for it to be switched over to a commercial property and for the development of that property to align with the future planning for that area.
Good. Council Cron.
If you really have a good look at the municipal development plan, you'll see which way council will have a propensity to vote. It doesn't mean that there are any foregone conclusions, but if you look at that whole Highway 52 and Main Street area and look at that one color, you'll see that council will most likely vote in favor of rezoning someday. So that's just, it shouldn't surprise anybody who's really had a good snoop through the municipal development plan.
Curtis, did you have a comment?
I think I agree, and so have valid questions. It's hard to give a actual cumulative answer that can demonstrate exactly what the dollar amounts are, and that's to their point. The cumulative effect, though, of more non-residential development over time increases the taxable assessment base of the community. So the city of Calgary, for example, the residential mill rate, and I don't know it exactly off the top of my head, but it's like 3%, 3 mils, whereas Raymond's 8.5. Their business tax rate is 12.5. When you look at how their numbers split down, it's substantially higher the amount of money they're pulling out from non-residential taxes, which allows them to keep a lower residential mill rate. Is this one business going to put extra dollars in your pocket? Probably not. But the cumulative impact of new commercial and non-residential industrial expansion over time is what does have that transaction, that quantifiable benefit. The comments made about the industrial land on the north along Railway Avenue, valid, and we'd love to see that developed. Part of the challenges there is there's still a railway line that's in there, and we don't own the land, and the people who are currently owning that land may or may not be interested in subdividing. I don't know what that conversation has been, but it's privately owned. And technically it's zoned industrial. So some of the uses in a commercial component can't happen in an industrial component. Some of them can, but it's not as simple as that may seem. And I understand your frustrations. I understand everybody's frustrations on this who live in a residential area and potentially having a commercial expansion. But to your point about having it start in the middle, that's all houses. And so, we would have to go through this exact conversation as we have for lots that are adjacent to that area.
Well, luckily, there's a real estate agent in town that's doing that by harassing the residents on Main Street to buy their lots for you. So
You don't even have to do it.
You don't even have to do it. You're fine.
He'll bring
I won't
somebody
get into
to harass them at the night, in the middle of the night.
And that may or may not be true, but there's a couple of lots on Main Street that have been torn, that had houses on it recently that have been torn down. One is still vacant, one has a beautiful professional business on it, that's providing a great service in the community, and it's across.
That's close to downtown though, this is 5 or 6
Correct.
blocks away.
Correct.
So it's
But
not really comparing apples to oranges.
It is part of in our land use plan, our commercially zoned corridor. And so as opportunities are available, if people want to develop downtown, we'd be more than happy to try and accommodate that as well. And this is administrative support, but we are cognizant of the fact that not everyone is supportive of this, and that's why it's here. Once it's zoned, if it is zoned commercial, if it's a permitted
Curtis,
use.
stop letting your bias show, go on.
I told you on the phone, Ivory, we are very much supportive of any and all growth in the community as an organization, as an administration. However, we don't make those decisions.
So let me go to Thank you, Curtis. Let me go to one more point that these two ladies made, that they bought there not knowing that this was like this. The plan had this, especially, I guess it was Zoe. Was I-
Both
Both
of us,
of
we
us.
bought at the same time.
We bought at the same time, I just built first.
It's an interesting street you built on, because it wasn't even a road there, it was part way.
Mhm.
And when you talk, normally, I hope that would be a through road someday.
No,
You
there
always
wasn't
thought it
even
was
a
gonna
breath
be
of
a-
that. We've got the plan right here and it's not on the plan that was existent when we bought the land. It would, and yeah, it would have been lovely to know though.
So you've always thought it was just like a cul-de-sac road, it would never be a through road?
Wait, what?
Well,
Sorry, I don't know
when
what you
we,
mean by
when we bought it, we didn't know it would be a through road,
No, we knew that it eventually would be
Okay.
like after we
a
bought
main-
it.
a main road. Yeah, like
After we
it's
bought it.
slated to become a main road, but that has nothing to do with
Commercial,
No,
Zoning,
no,
commercial
We're
zoning.
just talking about how you
Yeah.
said when you bought that, the different things. So when you bought that really would have affected you if there would have been something over there?
if there was a
If we
commercial
would have known that
property right
commercial
there,
was coming down the
absolutely
highway.
not. No,
Yeah.
not a chance.
So even a few, like, does it bother you with the Dairy Queen right now and this Eagles home?
Yes,
I mean, I can see the Dairy Queen lights from, I have an acre in town and I can see, I mean, but it
that's a
bothers
completely
me,
different issue though,
It
because that was
bothers
the
me.
only spot that could happen.
but I
get it,
understand
but-
why it's done. I wouldn't have tried to stop it. It bothers me, sure, but
Like, it was
But
the
it
only
makes
spot in
sense.
town that qualified to be a Dairy Queen. I get it, there was no
because a
other spot.
franchise has a bunch of
Mayor.
stipulations, right?
But there
So-
are a lot of other places, I'm sure, that
Councillor
could
Foss?
become.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's hard to hear out here when there's more than one person talking.
That's true.
Sorry.
If you could take turns, it might be easier for us.
When you're on Zoom, it scrambles, that's, he's telling you the truth
Yeah, sorry.
on that.
Yeah, there's a big echo.
So, yeah, it's very unfortunate that you weren't advised of that, I guess, because I was thrilled to see your houses go up there. I think it's great, they're great additions as you come into town. See those beautiful homes.
I mean, the other
It'll
thing
look
that
great with the garage across the street too.
the other thing that solidified us knowing that is because, again, I would say the overwhelming majority of churches don't have commercial right next to them. So the church was a huge selling point. It was like, yeah, we're on the highway, but there's a church here. And literally, I was gonna bring the numbers, but the overwhelming majority, I'm sure all of us that have been to churches all over the world know the overwhelming majority of churches don't have a car wash next to them or that type of business. If there was a business, it would be something tasteful that looked, but we can't, that's the problem with the changing of the zoning, is that it's out of your hands. If the zoning was gonna be changed and I knew it was gonna be like a nice law office that kind of looked like a house, but that's out of our hands, right? So we either have to oppose the zoning change or not.
Sure, I understand.
So
Sorry, I just have a question, and we asked Mark, but he left, I don't know.
I think he maybe went to get it.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Well, he went to get that
The map
because,
we have is from 2009, we're just wondering, on this map, it looks like you're trying to go from Main Street, what is it, 8 blocks down?
so what she's
But
wondering is
I'm
he gave me the wrong map.
He did. You wanna see
So they're
where
looking
most,
at,
I wanna know, cause
it
this goes 8
MVP
blocks
block.
down
It goes along.
and only
Highway
2
52.
blocks on the other side. With the commercial, that's the new one. So I guess this is our question. On the new, what is this, MDP, is that what you call it?
MVP.
If you go out west from Main Street, your plan has for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks west of Main Street to become commercial and only 2 blocks east of Main Street to become commercial. Why is that?
Which is funny because I think the town actually recently owned the blocks east where they built those 2 cul-de-sacs by the hospital. They could have at that time made those
Commercial.
commercial,
So
but they
why
made
is
them
it
residential. But
why
there's,
is-
like, it seems kind of like a hodgepodge afterthought, but.
Yeah, this is hard.
So why is it going that far west and going 2 blocks east? If it's just all the Main Street, we're gonna make commercial.
Or all of Highway 52.
Or all of Highway 52, sorry, but we need to make sure that it goes right to the edge of town on that side, and we'll just slightly go to the east.
Okay,
Why is that the plan? Why is that better?
I don't know, good.
And for the next 100 years.
Okay, in 100 years, why can't we have 5 blocks east? Why can't it be more towards the core? Why does it have to have this weird long arm out to the west?
Bonnie, please.
So what we're talking about here is major long-term planning questions. So I guess if there's concerns about what the future is and how it's been indicated or desired to achieve through the NDP, then there needs to be perhaps a review of the municipal development plan in terms of what those long-term goals are. But currently, the municipal development plan is designed in this way that Highway 52 serves as a corridor for potential for commercial development. And at the time that the municipal development plan was adopted, and through conversations and considerations of council, through public comment, through design shreds, dating back 2000 all the way through 2019, that was the desired direction for growth. And that's just to describe exactly why, we're going X number of blocks this way and X number of blocks that way. It's challenging to describe those exact criteria, but at the time, that was the desired direction. The idea being that 52 to the west would serve as a commercial corridor. There are existing developments on the east that made it not so viable. Also knowing that the limitations in terms of access from transportation played a big role in terms of what way commercial development would actually be viable. And in that case, it is more viable to go west than it is to go east.
Okay. There's a good answer for you.
Along those lines, but you're saying future development, this is now for us. Right? What's happening is now for us, right?
Yes.
So so I guess my question is I don't know what the guy's name was, Roger Brooks, or who was that? Who was the ninja of branding? Okay, so I'm throwing out a number. I don't know if taxpayer dollars paid him 40 grand to help brand the town.
It was a grant.
Oh, grant, sweet. I do love town council Raymond. They get their grants. They're awesome for that. So is that along the lines of what because I did watch that whole thing, and he talked about when you're trying to get people to move and build in Raymond, that is the way, Highway 52 is the way they should come in, because there's all these, it has the potential to look very acreagey, like, acreages and Okotoks. I'm wondering, that all that money was spent on that guy, would that be in accordance with his plan?
Let's call him.
That's interesting because I just had somebody text me that, somebody else who's on watching town council right now, said, would Roger Brooks think that this was a good idea? So, I don't know, not sure.
So Bonnie has a comment, please, Bonnie.
Yeah, just one more consideration too. So in the land use bylaw, it does recognize that 52 is a gateway corridor. And there are even provisions in the land use bylaw that indicate if there's development that occurs along that highway, that there may in fact even be higher development standards apply. So it is defined in a way that recognizes this serves as the gateway to the community and needs to have a high development standard. So, I didn't watch this presentation from Brooks, not too sure what you're talking about, but in terms of branding a community, we've certainly incorporated those provisions in the land use bylaw, recognizing this is a key corridor. And in terms of compatibility and suitability, at the time of development, it's very important to make sure that those things are considered. And as Councillor Fromm indicated, there may be measures that have to reach a higher standard than perhaps would have been done in the previous applications to ensure compatibility with residential use. So certainly those are considerations that have to be undertaken at the time of development. So is this site suitable for a residential use? That's really what council is considering tonight.
Residential.
Commercial use.
Over a commercial
Yeah, a
use.
commercial use,
So
yeah,
that was
from
residential.
residential to commercial, yeah.
So just so you can understand, Roger Brooks just said that coming in on the north side of town is very unattractive.
Yeah.
This is very much more attractive coming in on the east
Okay,
of
that's
the
the
west.
When I do my yard.
And I would also like to add that I think that having the Dairy Queen coming in on the west makes it even more attractive when people come in, they see that, and they think it's even a better place to live.
I agree.
So,
And I agree, so do your homes. I love driving into Raymond from that view and seeing your homes, they're gorgeous.
I gotta move the trailer and do the landscaping, and then it's gonna be beautiful, but that's just.
I just feel like when our homes are across from a car wash, that people are gonna say, are you happy you built in Raymond? And I'm gonna say, nope. I'm sure not, because they just throw up businesses willy-nilly all over. You just never know what you're gonna end up across from.
So I
You
just
can't
wanna,
do that anymore because we have a municipal development plan, it's not really nilly.
so I just,
Yes, you're right.
I just wanna add
When I
to,
built it
I'm
was.
glad you two stayed to hear the discussion. When we did the Dairy Queen, everybody got up and left and the room was full. And this is where we have the discussion, and I don't have to include you, but I have included you because I'm just trying to
Thanks.
do what I think is fair. But there is a motion on the floor that we accept, or that we accept this bylaw as has been put forward, and we also have a suggestion that we table this. Does anyone want to move forward with the tabling of this motion? That Councillor Harker suggested? Okay, I see no appetite for that, Councillor Harker, I'm sorry. So we have a motion on the floor then that Councillor Peters put forward. Before we vote, any other discussion from council on this?
Can I just make one point of order?
Sure.
A tabling motion can be made, Joan, and it's not debatable. It has to be voted on before we can go on to the other motion. But, it might win, it might lose, but then we go right to the other motion anyway. So if the table is appropriate, Joan, if you wanna make it?
I would like to move to have this tabled because I don't want to be a member of town council in 10 years that said, oh, that stupid town council, I don't know what they were thinking when they let that business go next to the church. Because I just still feel like maybe, I don't know, I don't feel like I have enough information because I'm part of town council and I feel like I was a little bit misled because I thought, when I thought commercial, I thought, oh, where that house is, I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, next to the church.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I was thinking in terms of straight across from the Dairy Queen. Oh yeah, I can see a business going in there. But I wasn't thinking in terms of, oh yeah, they're gonna share the parking lot with the church. I'm sorry, but I think this is worth tabling because I think we should get a little bit of input from the people who are actually using and going to that church. I feel like we are amiss if we do not do that and get a little bit more community input. I guarantee nobody knows this is happening.
And Joan, I've been to all the things that you've been to, and I don't feel like I was misled. I understood that the entire piece would be zoned commercial one day.
Yeah, I missed that, Ron. I missed that.
Okay.
I missed that in my visual mind. I'm visual. I was just thinking of it, right across from it. I wasn't thinking in terms of, oh yeah, that's right next door to the church. Now I understand it.
I don't intend to support the motion because there's still plenty of time for somebody to apply for a use, whether it's allowed or whether it's discretionary for that piece of property. And there's lots of time to give input and to discuss it in the future without tabling this. So, but a tabling motion is appropriate, it's in order.
If you want to make that motion, Joan, to table it, we can.
So
I did. I made the motion.
But just before that, maybe, if I may, just before Councilor Fromm, you made a comment, and I just want so there's full clarity. If this is approved and it is commercial, it's commercial. If somebody then comes to the development office and says, I want to put something on that parcel that is permitted, there is no input that will come to the Municipal Planning Commission, provided it meets setbacks and there's no waivers that are required. That won't have that opportunity. If it is something that's discretionary, then yes.
But a car wash is not on the permitted use.
Correct. If that is what it is, and I think it may very well be, but it may not be. And so we need to make sure that we're not allowing a potential hypothetical sway a decision that may or may not be related,
Yeah.
although valid concerns. That's not necessarily this application. If it is a car wash, there will be its day where people can provide their comment. If it's not though, I just want that to be clear. You may not get the opportunity for later input if it's permitted. That's all I just wanted to make 100% clear so that everyone was aware and no one can say that they didn't understand.
And I get that. Tabling motion simply prolongs what is part of the municipal development plan to make that piece of property commercial someday.
Okay, good. So Joan has a motion on the floor to table this, until we have more information. Anyone else have any discussion on this?
I'm not really saying more information because we don't really know what it's gonna be. I'm just saying, I would like, this is my honest wish, that more people who are actually in the area and are using that church on a regular basis, I would like them to know that this is what we're considering, because I'm telling you right now, I don't really think people know. And so this may very well go ahead, but I think that we need to table this so that more people in the community are made aware and can have some input. I'd rather, seek a little bit more permission than try to, seek forgiveness for, maybe not a rash decision, but maybe a decision where we didn't have enough community input. And that's all I'm saying.
And I get you, Joel, and a tabling motion is not debatable. I just want everybody to understand that what are you trying to table? The installation of a car wash or the redesignation to commercial? That's the big question everybody has to ask themselves when they vote on the tabling motion.
Yeah, and I want to table the redesignation so that more people who are affected by the redesignation able to be informed. That's all. Because I don't feel people know.
Okay, did you write that down? What it is? So my only question on that is people can really speculate, like on that one email, it was liquor store, could be drugs. Those kind of speculations are definitely gonna get you a no on this, or a response from people. We don't know what it is.
And we don't know what it's gonna be in 20 years either,
No, that's
to
exactly
be
right.
in all honesty. And what I'm saying is it's across from the church. I want people to have input. That's all I'm saying.
And that's a
All
valid
I'm
comment,
saying.
Councillor Harker. Just the one comment, if it is approved commercial and it is a permitted use that doesn't need council input, if it was to ever be changed to something, like you mentioned, a liquor store or something that would be far more controversial, that just doesn't happen automatically. That again has to be a change of use for that parcel. And I believe Bonnie and Mark, if I'm saying this wrong, you can correct me. But that would be a change of use for that parcel, which would mean there would be further input that would have to be required. It just could not happen automatically.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion? You wanna read it? Dave?
Motion to table, second reading of bylaw 1098-21, land use bylaw rezone.
Okay. Everybody understand then? I'll call for the vote. All in favor of tabling this? Okay. All opposed? There we go. I thought we only had 2 votes. It was defeated, Councillor Harker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1.
All good.
Okay, so now we have a motion on the floor to rezone this. To accept this application to rezone this to commercial by Councillor Peters. Any discussion on this now? Have we discussed it enough? Okay, there's no discussion. Anyway, I guess I'll call for the vote.
I have one thing. Curtis, are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned about certain things we have a say in and certain things we don't have a say in once it's rezoned commercial. Is there anything I know you can't say exactly what it is, but there's some type of industry that we do have a say in, and some type of industry that we don't. Did I say that way?
Commercial.
I mean commercial, sorry.
Just a moment.
It was outlined in one of the attachments, right?
Yeah, I missed that.
I think Mark could answer that better.
So permitted uses are accessory structures, business support services, convenience store, eating establishment, financial institution, health service, office, personal service, retail store, and then signs that are type 1, 2, and 9. So that's a little bit vague on what the sign aspect means. It just means what kind of signs are permitted on that parcel. Development officer discretionary uses are childcare facilities, clubs and organizations, equipment sale, rental and service, farmers market, dwelling unit as a secondary use, shipping container, a temporary shipping container application, which is only when something's happening, show homes or a tourist information hub, prohibited uses, which means there is no ability for it to happen, and it's impossible for it to be allowed unless the bylaw is changed, are bulk fuel stations, and any use that isn't listed is either permitted or discretionary, or deemed a similar use in accordance with Part 1, which again is kind of vague. Now discretionary uses, which goes to the MPC, are amusement facilities, animal grooming facilities, automotive sales and or service, car wash, construction camp, which won't really apply, construction supply and contractor, drive-in and drive-through restaurant, entertainment establishment, excavation, funeral facility, government service, grocery store, household repair service, motel, hotel, mini storage, parking lot, parks and playgrounds, recreation facility, whether it's private or public, recycling facility, service station or gas bar, senior citizen housing, shipping container, that's a permanent location there, a shopping center, a bunch of different sign types, specialty manufacturing or cottage industry, transportation or delivery service, utilities, veterinary clinic, small wind energy conversion system, and stockpile. Aggregate kind of yard. So those are the discretionary ones. Again, unless we have an actual application, it's hard to speculate. But the discretionary uses are more lengthy than the permitted uses. So there is a likelihood, a high likelihood, if that's might be too generous to say, that there would be opportunity for further comment. But again, it's impossible to know until an actual application comes.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm sorry, I missed this last slide. I was going through it last night, so, but that clears it up. Thank you.
So again, excuse me, Mayor, I just want to say, with the permitted uses, are we okay with the 7-Eleven next to the church? I mean, I'm just saying. I don't know what else, like 7-Eleven. I mean, if it was my son's dental office, I'm all over it.
No bias.
It's pretty nice, but I'm not real sure about a 7-Eleven or a convenience store. Like, am I crazy, or is anybody else? I don't know. Not sure. It is next door to the church. It's going to share a common drive, park.
There's a lane that
parking lot.
they could share,
Yeah, they can go into the share and then go into the, 7-Eleven Max store. I'm just saying, I'm trying to visualize this. And I'm just trying to visualize, I go to church there. So, does anybody else go to church there? I don't know. I'm just trying to visualize this. Call me crazy.
Crazy.
Anyone else have any other discussion on this?
I just want to make a comment, Councilor Harker, I understand you go to church there and I don't, but that doesn't mean that a year from now, if they redo the words, I might go to church and you don't, so, like, I don't know if we can take too much into consideration just because we don't know who's going to be going to that church in the future.
I'm saying whoever is going there, and that's people that are texting me right now saying, what's going on? Like, I'm sorry, they don't. I'm looking at that list of uses and wondering which one is just going to be great. Tell me one that's going to be just awesome right there by the church. Just one.
So it's already been brought up by the two ladies here that it might be a car wash. There's a car wash, is that gonna make it a bad spot for someone to go to, while the others are going to church, if they're gonna go wash their car? You know, to me, that doesn't. It says it can't be a bulk fuel store, so it can't be a car wash with a fuel station. That's prohibited use. I'm just throwing that back at you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the ones that are in favor. Look at the ones that he doesn't even have to come for us to ask us. I'm looking at those. Let's look at those ones again, people, please.
I like to do ridiculous extensions. I've said it to you before, I know they're ridiculous, but I don't know the whole history of the Las Vegas Strip. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just approach that point where commercial paid a little more of our tax, and our mill rate could approach 3 instead of 13. I know this is a drop in the bucket, but look at the plan. There's a big long-term plan to develop commercial business in Raymond so that we don't have to rely heavily on municipal taxes. I mean, on provincial taxes.
I agree 100%, but I'm just a little bit worried because it's right next to the church. Do you understand what I'm saying, Councilor Brown? You understand?
I understand why I go to church. It's not for the view.
I know. That's what I'm saying. And you think of all the churches that you've been to. Think about even Big Fort, Montana. Think of all those places. They are not usually next door to a convenience store, right?
Except, when you're thinking about these churches, then you're spot on. But I go down 13th Avenue in Lethbridge and I see several churches. And even where I work downtown in Lethbridge, there are many churches, and you'll be surprised, they don't even have a parking lot. They're so hemmed in by businesses. And then you go to, 16th Avenue in Calgary, and there's so many places there where a little tiny church, I'm thinking, man, how can you have a congregation meet there? There's no parking. There's a 7-Eleven right next door, and there's a this and that right next door, a restaurant right behind them, and it happens all the time.
I know, but right now, Councilor Crum, right now, we have a choice, and this is our permitted use. Accessory structure, business support service, convenience store, eating establishment, bank, health service, that would be okay. Office, that would be fine. Personal service, like maybe counseling. Not sure about a retail store, and I don't know what signs type 1 and 9
I can bring about a million things that might never happen, but right now, tonight, I'm choosing to support the municipal development plan and support the second reading.
Okay, but there's no going back, just so you know.
But there's still checkpoints along the way, Joan. It's not a done deal. We're not getting a car wash there because of how we vote tonight. That's another ridiculous extension.
So there is going back. If someone is wealthy and is watching this and wants to approach the developer, then they could buy it from him and put a house there for sure.
So if you're wealthy then?
What's that?
If you're wealthy.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're gonna have to have enough to buy it off you.
No, I'm just saying
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, if I was wealthy, then my voice would count.
No, I'm not saying that. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to purchase it from him. So. Okay.
So, sorry, to clarity there. Are you suggesting that if it's rezoned commercial, somebody could buy it and build a house?
No,
Or did I mishear?
They would have to come back here and have it rezoned back to residential.
Okay,
But
thank you.
somebody then could, so it's not like it's going one way and it's never coming back. It could come back.
But show homes are a permissible use. I mean, you can have a developer that built 3 gorgeous homes there that were just advertisements for his development company. I mean, that's a permissible use too. But I'm not too worried about that happening. We have to just wait and see what happens in the future.
That's true.
I would that would just be better, I think, than a Mac store or a 7-Eleven. That's all I'm saying. But we don't know what it's gonna be.
Unless we own it, we can't control it 100%. And so
You're
that's
right.
that's what
You're
we still do.
absolutely right.
If somebody wants to put in Dairy Queen and take the chances of making it or breaking it, that's what happens.
And I have no discomfort with the list of items on discretionary use. I think they're appropriate in a commercially zoned property, and I feel like this is appropriately commercially zoned. I do have some discomfort with a bunch of the things in discretionary use, but we get a chance to review those before they're approved.
As the checkpoints and the way stations that are coming in the future, where we have some say in that.
Okay, any more discussion? If not, I'm gonna call for the vote. So all in favor with the motion that Councilor Capito's put forward to accept this as a rezoning? Okay, any opposed? I saw a thumb come up, Joan, it was upside down, I think you were waiting for the opposed, yes. Okay, so it was.
I'm opposed, sorry, I did it at the same time.
Yep, it was 5-1. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry ladies, I think we have to take any opportunity we have to have things go forward for commercial.
They'll probably be back when it comes to the NBC.
I'm sure they will.
It's hard to ask.
That was just second reading,
They'll
correct?
get to come back.
That's correct.
Unless it's a max, and then I got a max store open until 11 PM with lights, and no one has to,
Hopefully it's a 7-Eleven, they've got good, you know, fries.
they have paper straws, so.
Does anybody want to entertain a third reading, or do you want to let it sit for 2 or 3 weeks? 2 weeks, I guess. And let the community weigh in on this.
Mayor,
Councilor Foss.
just a question perhaps for Bonnie, since she's still in the room.
She is.
We closed the public hearing, we heard comments, is it appropriate to hear more comments when considering this bylaw?
No, so at this point, if council chooses to defer third reading and they wanna have a public hearing, we'd have to start the whole process again. If you want more comments, we'd have to reopen a public hearing and redo the bylaw.
Good comment then, Councilor Foss, so I guess you want to entertain a third reading.
I move third reading, and if I lose, I lose. I've lost motions before, but I move third reading.
Okay, Councilor Vaughn moves third reading. Any discussion on this then? And all in favor? Okay, any opposed? I've taken yours, Councilor Harper is opposed. Okay, thank you. 8.5, delivering community power, Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Abe, I seen you sent out another one just about 5 o'clock.
Yes.
3 o'clock, I can't remember what it was. Is that the one you'd rather us look at, or?
I think that was just kind of supplementary information on what they're trying to do. That was supposed to be part of the attachments, but it wouldn't load in ONET, so that's why I sent it out as a separate email. But here's the letter from the president of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. They're looking for a motion from councils, I believe, to support transitioning postal service into looks like a utilities delivery, possibly internet and communications service.
So I find this very interesting that Canada Post is trying to get into all these things.
I actually thought it was kind of weird. I don't get the connection at all.
That's my first plus two, Joan. That's not our responsibility. If they want to reinvent themselves, go for it, but it's not our problem.
Why would we want to endorse that? Like, I didn't.
And I think
I didn't read the whole thing that you sent out separately, but I didn't know what you were trying to.
I looked at this little slideshow thing that he sent. Boy, they go into a lot of things, creating a lot of jobs, and I'm not sure I understand either, to be honest with you.
I think this is the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. I don't think this is Canada Post.
Wasn't that?
I
They
think,
talked about delivering and checking on the seniors people, and
yeah, and,
so I thought it was kind of appropriate.
The grasping straws.
I thought that was really creepy. I don't know that I really want a postal worker checking on my aged mother in an apartment in Calgary. That sounded creepy to me, sorry.
Okay,
This is more the way the European Postal Service works. I mean, you can do everything at the post office in so many European countries, but I think the Canada Post has done too little, too late to justify this level of makeover.
they're talking about banks, they're talking about being the only bank in communities. They go into a lot of different areas. I was quite surprised. I'm sure they're not there yet. I'm sure they're trying to get there.
I think that's the idea. I think they're trying to get enough support from communities, and then they'll lobby the government to transition Canada Post into these services that they've outlined in these motions here.
Is anyone willing to make the motion to support this?
You know, I don't need to mention any names. We all have our own favorites at the post office as they are currently staffed. But I don't get the level of service at the post office, but I'm willing to give them another major.
Thank you for coming. Sorry that you
Sorry.
Sorry, Ron. Councilor Fromm, there's some people just leaving.
Oh, okay. I just don't have enough confidence in my lived experience with post office staff to give that level of service to them. You know, they haven't proven to me that they're even really good at what they do now.
Okay. So anyone else have a desire to make the motion that they would like us to have, or just want it to be for correspondence only?
I say let them fight their own battle.
Everybody agree with Councilor Fromm? I do.
I agree with Councilor Crum.
I agree too. I don't even like, I don't think this is even appropriate for us to.
It's only three of us, there's three more on the. Is that four? That's four of us.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess you guys don't have a say now, you're done.
And I also agree, no
Okay,
interest.
no interest. Okay, we'll move to 8.6, the RCMP personnel update. Councilor Abe,
No, I added this
you did?
last minute today. Just information update for you. Sergeant White is going to be taking at least a temporary position at the Coaldale RCMP detachment to help get that operation up and running, so he won't be within the community for at least a 6 to 9 month period. It may become a permanent posting or it may not. But during that time, Corporal Don Nelson, I believe is his name, is the acting sergeant, I guess you might say, for the detachment. And so I just wanted council to be aware, Sergeant Wright, if his workload permits, would like to still do the quarterly reports, but he's not sure what his reality will be. And so I just wanted you to be aware as to that transition, and if you have any questions, I can try and answer them.
So it was hard to hear you, Curtis, but did you say that Corporal Don Nelson might be reporting instead of Sergeant Wright?
Sergeant Wright going to try to still do the quarterly reports that his workload allows. Otherwise, Corporal Don Nelson will be providing that role in some capacity. We're not sure, but he's going to be doing. They're not replacing the body in the RCMP detachment, so Corporal Nelson's going to be very busy running the operations down a man and then taking on the administrative community outreach support kind of role that Sergeant Wright spent a lot of time developing, and so it may be beyond what he's able to give at that time, but that's something we'll progress and kind of monitor as we go. But I just wanted council to be aware of that change that's just happened.
Do I need to make another apology for calling him Officer Bond?
Yeah, that was great. I love that.
I don't want to feel bad. He's not
So-
leaving, but he's just,
So Curtis, you did say we'll be down one officer.
Yeah, because it's not a permanent posting
Yeah,
at the
okay.
moment, it's a transitory. I don't think they're going to be bringing in a body for that time frame. However, time will tell.
did you say that Sergeant Wright was going to Coldale?
Yes.
Temporarily, minimum temporary, might be permanent, we don't know, but it's at least 6 months, might be 9.
That's too bad, because he is very good. It's closer for him, I guess. He lives in Lethbridge. Okay, well, he'll keep us.
It's echoing. So you're saying Sergeant Wright is going to Coaldale, is that what you're saying?
Temporarily,
Temporarily, okay,
at
it's echoing.
minimum, potentially permanently.
Thank you.
Okay, that's too bad, because he's been good for our community. But Officer Nelson is good too, so. Okay, we'll move on to number 9, committee reports. If you could click on May 4th committee reports, I'd just like to, I need to talk about mine. So, I don't know if you've had a chance to read these. Councillor Peters, are you gonna be able to go to your next Chief Mountain meeting?
Yeah, we have a strategy meeting on Thursday, and I have a SCDC meeting on Friday, and we were able to jump those are gonna be virtual. Abe was gonna work on being able to patch me in for that the Chief Mountain meeting.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was virtual or not, so, okay, at our 4 mayors meeting, we discussed this, we discussed, what Curtis presented to us a while back on the organic waste and weighing it, and trying to get, Chief Mountain to be paying us for keeping weight from going into the Chief Mountain landfill. And all 4 mayors seem to be in agreement with this. They're all gonna talk to their councils about it at their next council meeting. And they're also, to save you or Abe having to bring it up, they're also, one of them was going to bring it up at the meeting. And so I just want to make sure someone's gonna be there to support that and if it gets brought up, and it should be at your next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good. It was brought up by McGrath a few months ago, and we had a discussion about it as well.
Okay. It is gonna be brought up, I think, by a counselor from Cardston, so just be ready for it, I guess. We just didn't think it was fair for Raymond or you or Abe to be bringing it up. We're always trying to promote ourselves, correct? So, but they were in favor of it. Curtis, you have anything to add on that, or is that good? I think you're muted, Curtis.
Yeah, sorry, no, I think you adequately expressed it.
Okay, community celebrations. Obviously, they were curious about what we're doing since we're first, and I told them that we're gonna plan as if it's gonna happen, and we'll wait and see what happens. They would all they're all planning fireworks at the other communities, but they don't know what's happening on them. But Councillor Fahm, any further discussion on this?
We're going ahead with a lot of things we're gonna do. If we have to, we'll repeat what we did last year, but we're gonna have some town celebrations on July 1st, there's no question about it.
Okay.
We'll follow too, and we'll keep the law, but we're gonna plan some stuff.
Okay, I'll move on to swimming pools. We talked about this for quite a while. I don't know if you see there's some awful restrictions that have been put in place by the government. It's probably reduced now, but only in groups of 10. So really, a household could have more if their house. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe they're saying household couldn't be more than 10. But masks on if you're not under the water. You're supposed to be social distancing in the pool. And then you're asking youth lifeguards to try to enforce all these restrictions. Is there anything I missed, Curtis, on this?
No, the only thing I'd say is I think the city of Lethbridge is requiring the masks on in the water. I'm not sure if that's an Alberta government regulation. I think the city may be taking it a step further. But that it's potentially problematic of how on earth do you actually intend to enforce that?
And do you want somebody to drown?
Exactly.
Honestly, I lifeguarded for 5 years. That sounds so ridiculous. Dina Hinshaw must not even know what swimming is. I've never heard of anything so stupid.
And Councillor Harker, again, I don't believe that's the province's regulations. I think that's the cities. They're teething them up a little bit, but it's absurd nonetheless, I agree.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So you see that Sterling is positively not opening their pool. The McGrath is hoping to have a soft opening on their pool by July 1st, if not a little earlier. But then they're still not sure what's going on either, what they're gonna do. Carson is like us, they're still not sure what they're doing. If it'll be financially even close to viable, if you're only having 10 people at a time, you'd have to have your prices pretty high to get in, to make it even a little bit viable. I just wanted to bring this up just so you knew what they were talking. One community does have a spray park, and they says if the restrictions are the same way as they are now, they will not even open that. And that's because how do you enforce the social distancing, different households? They just don't want to be doing it.
I'm sorry, I have a real concern with this. Has anybody been to Costco and noticed that for some reason, the limiting 20% or whatever does not apply to Costco? Has anybody noticed that? It was at first, but now it's a free-for-all. When we were there, we didn't go in, but the parking lot was full out to the road on Saturday, and I know they're only supposed to be at, I think, 20% capacity, and they don't have a sign up, and it's a free-for-all. So I'm just a little miffed by how Costco can pack, but we can only have 10 people in a swimming pool with chlorinated water. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just about done here with all this ridiculous stuff.
I think
That is ridiculous.
I think we all agree with you, but unfortunately, there's nothing we can do on this. Anyway,
Oh yeah, there is.
Let me move on. The policing. So I've talked about this before. The Mayor and Reeves meeting, we talked about it. The province is pushing a provincial police force to replace the RCMP. There's 2 letters on our correspondence tonight. I really think we should write a letter too. I don't know if it's going to do any good, but I really think we should. Meanwhile, Sterling wants to submit to AUMA a resolution that policing be a requisition instead of downloading as they are now on us. And we talked about this at the 4 mayors meeting, and we all agreed that this needs to happen, but I didn't want to say Raymond would second it. I thought I wanted to bring it to council first to let you all have the opportunity to say. And the other councils are too. I'm not sure if this is what you would like, if we get back to them quick enough, we're even going to be the seconders. So, are you interested in doing that? You understand that?
It's kind of echoey. Can you say that again, please? It's just echoing in here.
So, what it is Sterling wants to submit to AUMA a resolution that policing be a requisition instead of a province downloading. Right now they're downloading it on us, so we have to collect it through taxes, through whatever. As a requisition, it would be like Ridge Country Housing, it would be like your school. And they're just saying that it's making us always look like the bad guy. We're the ones that have to increase taxes, and now so there's going to be it was 15 million last year was collected by the province. It's going to be like, I wrote it down last time on the last committee report. It's like 29 million we're going to collect, and then it's going to be more the next year. Where is it going? Really, everyone believes it's pushing for a provincial police force to replace the RCMP. And they're just saying that if this is happening, or Sterling is saying that we need a support for the resolution for AUMA that the province not download this money on us. It's a requisition that's like Rich Country Housing, like education. And that's what it's about. I hope you understand that. Does anyone else have a question? Councillor Foss, Councillor Fromm, Councillor Peters, Councillor Amy.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Councillor Foss.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward to me. I don't have any opposition to this. I mean, I would love for other things too, like some performance measures or something like that, but this would at least allow us to pull it out of our budget, if I'm understanding correctly, and show it on, we collect it, but we don't have to budget for it the same way.
Exactly. I probably didn't say that good enough, but that was good. Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Okay. Then would someone like to make a motion that we support Sterling in their resolution to AUMA?
I'll move to support Sterling.
Councillor Hagan makes that motion. Any other discussion on this? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Did we get everybody? I think we did. Okay. The other one is, do you feel we need to write a letter like McGrath has in the county of Painterth? And you've seen the other ones come through in the last weeks. Anybody in favor of writing a letter? Just that we don't support them? They did a survey that went through AUMA and it was like 65%, I thought it was more, said that they were not in favor of the province doing this. But I think like the province just, they let us know something and then they do it anyway. Does anybody want to make a motion to make that a letter coming from Raymond under the same way as McGrath or the county of Painterth?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Councillor Capito makes that motion. Any discussion on this? So just a little bit of discussion, I'll tell you that they're just talking about all the money that it'll cost just to change all their pensions around from the RCMP. I was having a discussion with a person from the city of Lethbridge Police Force, and he was telling me that they'll just, all these people that the RCMP here will just be their provincial police. They're not gonna uproot anybody and bring in new boots because they don't have the new boots to bring in. So it's, he was telling me that one of the ministers threatened to shut down the Lethbridge Police. He says, what were they gonna do there? How are they gonna shut them down? They'd have to replace all the Lethbridge Police. It would never happen. So I mean, I don't know, somehow just gotta keep getting through to them that things like this aren't acceptable. I think that's why we write the letter.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
Any other discussion then? Okay.
I'm not positive, I agree. I still don't know if it's gonna save us money or cost us money in the long run. And Canada, I mean, the police are already questioning Albertans who drive into BC. And Nova Scotia won't allow other Canadians to come in. And we're separating in so many different ways.
So
I'm not doing a bad thing.
Ontario already has their own police force. I think that's what Alberta is
Yeah.
looking to do too, is just take the RCMP out and have their own police force.
And has that been bad for Ontario? Does anybody know? I mean, I have friends that live in Ontario. I guess I'll ask them. Does anybody know if that's a bad thing? I'm not sure.
So all we're doing is just writing a letter that we agree with the rest of AUMA that it is not a good thing. I don't know the particulars, like you're talking Councillor Harker or Councillor Fromm, but
Well, Lethbridge Police Force, Calgary Police Service, Edmonton has their own. Every city's got their own. We've got our officers. It wouldn't be hard to just say, you are the new provincial police force. And I don't think it'd be that expensive. I really don't.
well, they're talking that it will be, anyway, all the talk I've heard, it's, anyway, no, I mean, I'm surprised it's only 70% or 65%, because everybody seems to be not in favor of this happening.
I'd like to see the government come out with a number of how much money we're gonna save, or the reason behind it. I haven't heard a reason why they wanna switch yet.
Remember the AHS dispatch? It was the same thing.
Yeah.
They said we're gonna save money. I'm not sure we're saving lives, but maybe we're saving money.
But it can also go on provincial police force, but I haven't heard them say, we want a whole provincial police force, and this is why we want it. I haven't heard any reason why. But some of them in the dark.
I could try to send you some stuff if you want, that you can read about it.
What does Sterling mean when they say they want policing to be a requisition instead of province downloading?
Okay, we already voted on that, but go ahead. Curtis.
Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I did see it. I'm sorry you weren't on like that. Go ahead, Curtis.
I just don't know what they mean by that.
So, right, I mean, the net effect's the same, Councillor From, we're still gonna have to take the money from our residents to pay for that cost. What it will allow us to do though is to say that, you know, it's not part of our municipal operations. It is you'll have on your tax bill, say, town of Raymond municipal tax rate, provincial education tax rate, seniors tax rate, which goes towards country housing, and they're set arbitrarily outside of the town, and then RCMP policing costs. Whereas right now, it's just included in whatever our mill rate is, and if we have to raise taxes because the province is adding 76,000 last year, or it was 55,000 last year, it's gonna be 100-some thousand this year, and it's gonna go up to 233,000 by the end of 2024, I believe, and we have to fund that instead of having it say to the tax, it's harder to say to the taxpayer, this isn't us, this is a requirement that's being downloaded from the province. And they've come out and said that we are not allowed to specify it that way. We cannot do it.
Okay.
So some communities are just writing letters that go along with the tax notice, which I think is maybe something we could do that basically says exactly what we're trying to say, it's just we're not legally allowed to put it on the tax notice.
I was just gonna bring that up. The county of Cardston also came, they've been into our last 4 mayor's meetings. And they brought it up that when they sent their tax notices out, they put a letter in there saying that the reason why their taxes went up was because of the downloading from the province for the policing, the RCMP right now. And we all thought that was a great idea. That's what Curtis was just referring to. Maybe the next time when we have to send out our tax notices, we put, this has gone up because of the policing requisition that we now have. Not requisition, the policing downloading that we now have.
Thank you.
But that's, anyway, it was a good idea by them. So that's what it was about. So anyway, we're talking about the letter. So we have a motion on the floor to write the letter. Councillor Peters, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, good, thank you. Now, of course, anyone else have anything to add? We have Councillor Flosses. I know we want you to include them in reports.
Yes, I do. I apologize, because honestly, I tried to send it.
You just send an email to Curtis.
I know, but my whole emails just disappeared. When I went to send it, I have no emails on my computer right now. I don't know what happened, it just crashed and they all disappeared. So I do have a couple things on. I attended by Zoom the South Grove quarterly meeting last week. That was postponed from the month before. As of last week, they are now 29 members strong. Hawaiian joined last week, so there's now 29 communities that belong to South Grove. We had a keynote speaker, his name is Patrick Kehoe from based out of Ontario, and it was very interesting. He talked about, and if you want, I can send you guys the link. He talked about optimizing the performance of our community buildings and different federal grants that we can apply for to help with the efficiency and the performance of our community buildings. It was very interesting. Also, just of note, the Lethbridge office, the office that was in downtown Lethbridge is now officially moved to Bishop View. And so that's where it is, South Coast is based out of now. And one of the people on South Grove talked about a relaunch grant, and I think we talked about it a little while ago, but just a reminder that for those local businesses that there's a relaunch grant, and some of the criteria is you have to be down 30% in revenue, but you can use it for things paying rent, paying wages, paying stuff like that. So she was just trying to make sure everybody was aware of that because of the times we are in. And our peace officer meeting got postponed again due to circumstances that were not in our control. So it will be on June 7th. So I'll have something to report there, and hopefully it doesn't get rescheduled again before then, it's been a couple times, but, and then I went to the meeting with Stuart, who reported on the meeting, on the, community meeting committee.
Good. Okay, so we need a motion to accept committee reports.
I'll move that.
Councilor Fromm, all in favor? Okay, we have correspondence in front of us. Anyone want to talk about anyone specifically? Okay, if not, then I need a motion to accept correspondence.
I'll move to accept correspondence.
Councilor Foss moves to accept correspondence, all in favor? Okay. We now need a motion to go into closed.
I'll move.
Councilor Hagy makes a motion to go into closed, all in favor? Thank you.
See you, Mark.
Okay, we're live now.
Okay, now we need a motion for adjournment.
I wanna make it, first time ever.
Well, that was quick.
Councilor Flom, all in favor? Okay, good. Thank you, everybody.